You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome episode of Ask Drone U. I'm waking up slowly to do this show for you, and my name is Paul.
And my name is Rob. And this is episode number 541. Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. Hopefully you're getting used to, well, I guess not everybody listening has the whole hour issue to deal with, right?
The whole hour issue?
Arizona people don't, with the
daylight
springing
savings time
forward for daylight savings.
Are you struggling in the morning? Because guess what? That is normal. Daylight savings time.
That's right.
I've been struggling all week long. And if you have been struggling to fly, say you went outside, it was cold, all of a sudden the wind came out of nowhere like it did here in New Mexico, and maybe you crashed your drone, check out the guys at unmannedsas.com/droneu. Why? Because they can fix your drone for $29.95. They'll send you a mailing label. They'll diagnose your drone, and if you elect to get it fixed with them, guess what? You get $20 back towards fixing your drone. Chances are you'll have it back in 2 weeks. It is a veteran-owned business, and your drone does stay here in the United States, which is great for aircraft registration reasons. Also, special thanks to our friends at Charky, who created the all-natural grass-fed Charky jerky. Charky is actually from the old language of the Peruvian Incan Empire to describe the process of originally making jerky. With only 4 ingredients, it's nitrate-free, chemical-free, and tastes great. If you've always thought beef jerky was a good snack, chances are you're high in cholesterol, so check out the lamb jerky, which is protein-rich and low in cholesterol. You can get it on Amazon, just search CHARKI or go to charky.love. Well, Rob, really excited to be here. We've got a huge podcast today, and essentially this podcast is going to focus on some pivot and some changes. For the last couple of years, we have seen the consumer drone market flourish.
Yep.
And recently there was an article by Sally French, who used to be the drone girl and now has changed her Twitter handle. It's now SAF Media, which some have said this is a good thing. Because, well, there could be some better information in some of these articles that she's written. But Sally, you're very good at SEO and metadata. Very, 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 very good. So
It is an interesting article.
It is. But her first line just makes me go,
Yeah, for various reasons.
Her first line, the consumer drone world is crashing. I don't believe that. Does that mean we're falling?
You know, what's interesting, though, is just a friend in the industry has sort of alluded to something similar.
Well, so this article came out in February 17th, and today is March 15th. Glad I paid my electric bill because it was due today.
I'm glad you did, too.
So we're about a month away from this article, but everything that was written in this article seems to have come true in the last month. And we thought it's really important to mention how the business of drones is changing and how the consumer market that has developed is beginning to evolve. You know, Sally's first sentence here, the consumer drone world is crashing. I would say the consumer drone world is evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what she's referring to here, based on the article, is a lot of the companies that are involved in the consumer drone world are having some struggles.
Well, they're having some struggles in light of DJI. DJI has essentially pushed everyone out. So 3DR essentially produced way too many solos. They couldn't keep up with the speed and development of DJI. They fired 150 people. They're pushed out. But in the article, it also talks about the Lily drone, the fact that DJI releases drones so fast at such aggressive price points that, again, very difficult for anyone to keep up.
Right.
And the only group that has been able to keep up is Unique and Autel. And Unique is trying to do different things. In fact, we've seen the higher grade drones, and everyone's kind of been like wondering like why. And we kind of talked about it with Patrick Egan, but it seems like the consumer drone world, as DJI is bringing in new pilots, they're also evolving these pilots. Mm-hmm. And the pilots themselves are figuring out, how do I make really good money? And the answer is, Well, you can do cinematography, you can work on sets, you can make a couple grand a day, so a lot of people go after that and they quickly realize that you have to be really smooth on the sticks to get those jobs. So then it's
Yeah.
like, well, how do I make really good money without being really good on the sticks and still being able to live the drone life? Well, mapping and infrastructure, and hey, look, drones can save lives. Why aren't we going after that? So
Well, and on the cinematography side, yes, you can make a couple $1,000s a day if you're really good on the sticks, but those jobs they're fewer and further between than, say, a lot of the industrial type work that's out there as people start to figure those jobs out.
Definitely.
I would think. I mean, that seems to be what we're seeing.
So cash flow wise, it's probably a better decision as well.
Yeah, I mean, $2,000 a day is fantastic if you're doing it 15, 20, 25 days a month,
some
right? But if
people,
you're doing
yeah.
it, well, 3 to 5 a month, I guess even that's not bad. But you do have overhead and costs and so forth. So if you're not doing it several days a month, then that's not as good as it sounds.
Well, I know that one local Albuquerque company, do you remember when the EPA broke that dam in Durango and we had all
yeah.
the orange water?
There's still lots of lawsuits going on with that.
Yeah. So they hired one of our friends' companies to actually go map that site and figure out how to close it up and contain the site. And I'm pretty sure they were making close to $1,000 an hour because they were flying LiDAR sensors. So mapping can make even more money.
Sure.
It just depends on how deep you go into it.
Right.
But the point of this article is to say that, like, the consumer market is evolving, and it's evolving because what DJI is doing.
Right.
And just this week, we saw something that really amazed us because, going back to this article, Sally French says, like, okay, the consumer world is crashing, and the reason why is because, well, look, GoPro's fired people, Parrot's fired people, 3DR has fired people, and just this week, Unique fired people.
Yeah.
But so did DJI. That's the kicker.
That's
a lot of people
interesting.
didn't realize this, but...
Which, by the way, isn't out yet as far as we know, news-wise.
Not as far as we know. But the friendly faces you used to see at all the conferences, everyone remembers the shiny smiles that you would get from certain people at conferences. It looks like they're gone.
Which is too bad.
It is too bad because those people were really good at building relationships, and that's what business is all about, in my opinion. So very sorry to see those people go. Very sorry to see the people at Unique go. But a lot of people are just blaming, DJI. And in this article, Sally French gives another reason to why these companies can't compete and why it would be difficult for Unique to compete. So she goes out and she lays out the fact that, look, it's going to be hard for these guys to compete with DJI. And then this week, Unique fires people. What does that say?
It says that she's right. And as we talk about that phrase again, we keep coming back to that. The consumer drone world is crashing. You pinned it more as evolving.
Because you have these new people that were new 2 years ago. They're comfortable. They see the value in living the drone life. They want to do it. It's different. It's fun. It's new. And they're evolving.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of what we're seeing here is some of these other companies, they just don't have the capacity to keep up with. So they're all going for primarily the consumer drone segment, right? And the perception is that's where the numbers are. That's where you're going to get millions and millions and millions of people who can buy these things, which I think is true.
Yeah.
But they're already behind a little bit. And now they're probably falling behind in some of the enterprise level stuff. And it just gets to the point where there's not much they can do other than cut costs.
We'll see. And this is a really good point. Yeah, they can cut costs, but there may be an obstacle in the way for any Chinese company doing infrastructure inspections in the United States.
His name is?
ITAR compliance. That's his name.
I was going to say Donald Trump and tariffs.
That is another obstacle, so let's just add that to the list. But we're actually having someone on later this week to talk about a security issue right now that could inhibit people from using DJI's equipment if this issue ends up being true. We're going to have a tech expert on the show to really say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is what we aren't doing. This is what DJI is doing. Is it a security breach or not? Because right now with mapping, our cameras, we've made this huge leap in just the last year, right? We went from a 12 megapixel sensor to now a 20 megapixel sensor. And some people are flying 40 megapixel sensors on something that's the size of a GoPro. Well, that's sub-centimeter grade accuracy.
Yeah.
That's ITAR compliance. Okay, so we're going to talk about that in a whole nother show because this could be the one thing, and Sally French did not talk about this. This could be the one thing that totally nixes the enterprise level operations for DJI and for Unique.
Yeah, so then who fills that need?
Arion. That could be it.
All
we don't
right.
know. They're military, so maybe not.
Yeah.
But
that's-
we don't know. But the other thing that Sally French said too is that the one thing holding Unique back is Unique's marketing. In fact, she said that in 2015, Unique received $60 million in funding from Intel's Corp, a venture capital arm, with the chip maker at the time taking a 15% stake in Unique. And that stake, which was not publicly disclosed, which would suggest that Unique was valued at $400 million, which compared to $8 billion of DJI, that's pretty small.
It is pretty small. Yeah.
I mean, just if obviously 400 million is a lot, but for a company to compete with DJI, it just doesn't seem that much. So she talks about marketing here. She talks about the difficulty in marketing where Unique falls short because they have not created a drone that has a brand name. Now, I would kind of disagree with that. I would say that the Unique Breeze has been a good drone for Unique. I think it's selling really well. But then this whole marketing issue, they haven't created, marketing. Well, the VP of marketing at this company is running a totally another venture at the same time. You wonder, is that having an effect? Which, by the way, it's actually a really cool product. It's called Pivot. But essentially, it's a piece of equipment that would work like, it's funny, before the Solo was a drone, the Solo was the Solo Shot, which was this thing that could track people and things based on this GPS receiver. And Pivot is pretty much the same thing, if I understand it correctly, except without the GPS. It's just using visual control to track. And I could be totally wrong about that. Don't quote me about it. I have not looked up Pivot. I just kind of got the general idea. But you wonder, is that causing issues with marketing?
Well, I would sure think so. I mean, if you're not 100% in, there's got to be some effect on your creativity, your productivity, your effectiveness. All those things factor into it. So sure, certainly.
Definitely. Now,
and by the way, I doubt DJI would allow something like that to happen. Just the way they run their
controlling
company.
atmosphere?
Correct. Yeah, I'd be surprised if they would let somebody be a part of another venture like that and try to be running the marketing of their company. I don't think that would happen. And maybe that speaks to...
Well, look at Eric Chang. I mean, I hate to bring that up because Eric is a good friend, and he's brilliant. But I wonder if that's why Eric left the company. It just makes me wonder because, remember, he had the aerial photography book, which is a good book, by the way. But maybe they saw that as something where he wasn't really able to perform at his best level.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows? I would have done the same thing as Eric, though. I'm just throwing it out there. So,
well, particularly now as you see how they treat people.
Well, yeah. In fact, that's a good point. One of my friends, we were talking about this whole podcast just yesterday, and he's like, it just makes you think. Would you really want to work for one of these big companies? Because here in the drone industry, you see these people at conferences and they're so excited to work for DJI. They're so excited to work for Unique. They're so excited to work for 3DR. And then 3 months later, the company falls off. Or a year later, the company falls off. Or a year later, they're gone.
Or they just chew you up and spit you out.
Exactly.
Because they got what they needed out of you, whatever that is.
And I totally, dude, in the first year of Drone U, and, there were people that I was talking to, I thought working for DJI would have been the coolest thing ever.
I know you did. I remember that. Like it was yesterday.
And imagine.
But here we are.
Yeah, I would have been gone today.
So what does this mean? I mean, you might have some listeners out there, Paul, that are saying, what do you mean the consumer drone world is gone or it's evolving? What does that mean for me? I was just starting to get into this. What do I
think
do?
it means that there is further room for growth for the new people, that more and more businesses are seeing this as a business viable solution to even some simple problems. So I think what we're seeing is the consumer market has pushed drones out to businesses, has pushed drones out to the regulators, has pushed drones out to society to allow the development of them. And the hardware has developed. Well, now businesses are seeing the reliability in the hardware. They're seeing more and more people use drones. And I think it's setting up this environment where more business owners are accepting of using drones in their business because society is okay with it.
Yeah, that's becoming more acceptable within society, little by little. So though there are some negative things here, some challenges for companies and leading to layoffs and so forth, there's positives here, and that is the industry is still growing. I mean, one of the challenges though is if you've got to pick a drone and what you're going to buy, there are people out there that, and maybe you could say that DJI now represents the man as it relates to the drone world, that are anti the man and would want to buy a Unique or an Autel or something. I mean, we have members that fall into that category. What do you say to them? Like, don't do it, you're crazy, or go for it and make the most of...
I don't know.
That's a tough one.
I am not giving any advice.
All right. You're on your own, if that's your question.
So you're saying, what do the people listening to the show make of this news?
Essentially, yeah, because again, well, number one, I think we can take a lot of positives out of it, and that is the industry is still growing. It's evolving, but it's growing.
But the hardware is not really going to grow too much more beyond what we have.
And according to this article, and we've heard this elsewhere, it's not just in this article, roughly 85% probably is the market share of DJI. Mm-hmm. How do you not buy a DJI?
Well, the only way you would not buy a DJI is one of two things. One is the Trump import tax. Remember, I talked about that on SUAS News. I wrote an article about the Trump import tax, how he would try to reclassify these drones instead of toys as actual camera platforms, so they would be taxed differently.
Which would affect Unique as well, though, right?
True. Mm-hmm.
So that wouldn't make any difference between those two.
Well, and the only other difference is the show that we're going to have later this week about DJI and the potential security breach, because DJI may potentially be taking data from your phone when the app isn't even running, which ends up not being completely true. So don't look too much into that. We have a tech expert coming on the show to really explain all this, that we ran some tests on the DJI Go app to see, is it sending up data? Because if it's sending up data with critical infrastructure, I don't really see how the Department of Homeland Security is going to be okay with that.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, of course, there are satellites that are probably getting all that information anyways. Maybe not to within a centimeter kind of accuracy, but they're getting a lot of that information anyways. I'm really curious to listen to that podcast. But maybe another way of getting to the point that I'm trying to make is competition is good, right?
Yes.
And
but you were asking, sorry, I just want to clarify that you were asking what could stop these two companies. That security breach could stop the companies, but it would again stop both of them. So sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and then who's left to fill that void? That pretty much nobody at this point. But if competition is good, we're looking at about 85% or whatever it is, 75 even, 90, who knows what it is with DJI's market share. Who's going to be bold enough to help the other guys build their market share? What members, what listeners, who's going to be willing to go buy those other drones to try to foster competition? And that's a difficult thing when you put it in the place of one person being that person. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because competition is good, and so we want these other companies to rise up, and yet it's hard to say go buy those drones right now.
It's hard to rise up against a wave that's 100 feet tall.
Yeah, it is.
But if the wave could get crushed by some coral reef, you hear what I'm saying? Some regulatory coral reef.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we are definitely in interesting times, and the funny thing is that I feel like we're finally seeing the end or the drawdown of the consumer market, and we're beginning to see the more business level, enterprise level.
But you got to clarify that statement. The end of the consumer market.
The end of exponential growth of the consumer market. I think that we're still going to see growth, but it's not going to be exponential growth, right? In this article, it's very clear that DJI sold 100 times more drones in 2015 they did in 2011. That's exponential growth. Are consumers still going to be buying drones after this year? Yeah, absolutely. Drones are going to become a staple. They already are. They're like a cell phone. It's just going to become more and more relevant, but you're not going to see exponential growth, I don't think. I think you could see exponential growth in companies like DJI. Like if DJI were to go public on the NYSE and we were to buy stock in DJI, I would buy stock because we're seeing we're seeing more people transition from consumer to business to now enterprise level business.
Sure.
And I would buy the stock just because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
I can't give stock advice though.
I mean,
No stock advice was given.
That's right. Nor will it ever be on this podcast. Yeah, I mean, that statistics, 2011 to 2015, and obviously that was exponential growth because that was the very beginning.
True.
And so we'll see. I don't know if I believe that significant growth, even to the point of exponential, is gone in the consumer drone world.
And I think that is definitely a strong statement. I just think that we're seeing, I guess the better thing to say is that I think we're seeing an evolution or a rise of the enterprise.
Totally agree with that.
Which means a little bit of a drawdown from consumer because these companies are clearly focused on the enterprise level market. I mean, again, Sally French makes a great argument in here where she talks about where customer service is very weak on both companies.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know. I mean, let's just take us, right? And very consumer drone, helping people get started, videography, cinematography, those kinds of things. Seeing, and obviously we've seen for a while, the enterprise side of things is something we need to do a much better job of at Drone U. And that doesn't mean we're going to leave the other stuff behind. We're going to get good at both. Mm-hmm. And so I could see these companies doing that as well.
Yeah, which for any members that are listening, if you're wondering, well, like, oh, I wonder what classes are coming out next. So for everyone listening, Drone U is like Amazon Prime. It's a subscription-based school. So you pay a monthly fee, $47 a month, and you get access to all of our classes, even the new ones. And we've already been working on these deeper level classes, like the mapping stuff. And we've got another class that we're filming in April where it's deep level mapping. So it's integrating marketing and mapping in one integrated platform so that people can get not only GIS data, but present architecture and construction and ranches and land brokerage in a totally new, succinct way. I mean, like I feel that we are already moving in the enterprise direction.
Absolutely.
But I also feel that, well, and I know because in the last 6 months I've been re-recording all the Don't Crash courses for the Mavic Pro and the Phantom 4 Pro and all these, new drones, which has kind of been fun.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
A lot of fun.
It's just continuing the learning process even here.
Yeah.
Even for you.
Well, we're always
even
evolving, and that's what we talk about
right.
in the Drone U community is that it's always evolving. And people have told me before, the community is worth the monthly price alone. I can't believe I get these classes on top of it. But to reiterate your point, we're not leaving people behind. We're just accelerating our classes and following along with the market as a whole because companies have reached out to us saying we need to develop a drone team. We don't want to hire drone operators. We want a drone team. We want you to come in and train them. So
right.
That's, it's all over the place.
It is
all over the board. But I don't want to end this on a bad note because, again, I think it just shows that the market is growing, that the market is evolving, that people, that as consumer drones have risen, now the enterprise, the corporate level is going to rise behind it. And I think that's what we're seeing.
Yeah. I think the industry is going to continue on the uptick. We're all going to try to find what our niche is and keep learning and just keep doing all the things we've been talking about for 550 podcasts.
Well, totally. And guys, don't forget, if you are really good at flying, you always have value. Just remember that. Even if you're doing mapping and autonomous missions, people say all the time, like, oh, I just don't understand why we would hire someone who actually knows how to fly when all they do is press a button. It's like, well, do you know how to avoid emergencies? Do you know how to take over control from the autonomous action right away? Do you know how to bring the drone down in the fastest way possible? Do you know how to mitigate emergencies? What's your emergency plan if that happens? If it does happen, it hits someone, what's your emergency plan then?
Yeah.
And then you take it like 5 levels deep and quickly they become overwhelmed and you're like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Bam!
Well, and so sort of on a positive note, we'll end here maybe that if companies like IBM are just relatively new to getting into this industry, clearly there's something that's going to be there for a long time.
Totally. I wonder if the chip that they're making down in Chandler, Arizona has anything to do with flying platforms. Because the amount of data that has to go through a flying platform, I mean, these drones are practically supercomputers in the sky. Mm-hmm. Seriously.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even SanDisk right now is working with DJI to work on having higher grade sensors, faster frame rates out of the Inspire 2. The problem is the ability to store that information fast enough that's coming out of the camera. So, SanDisk is even working with DJI now. Isn't that funny?
It's almost like who isn't working in the industry that's in a technologically based industry? They want to be a part of drones, and there's a reason for that.
Definitely. Well, I hope this insight helps you, makes you think about the future. Remember, you should always work in your business and work on your business, and this is working on your business, understanding where the market is, what the consumer market is doing, what other businesses are doing, and how do you adjust to continue making money. Do you adjust? Do you need to? Have you already filled a niche? For me, I've already kind of filled my niche, so I know where I want to be, what I want to do, and mapping may actually become a part of that just because I'm integrating multiple things together. But that being said, guys, I hope you found this podcast useful. If you have, please share it. Please subscribe on YouTube. Please leave us a comment or a review and do so nicely because we are a community of learners and teachers and we all learn collectively. So anyway, guys, that's going to do it for us today. My name is Paul.
My name is Rob.
And this is Ask Drone U.